Brad West. Hey, man, welcome to the show. Appreciate you joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Got Brad West here today. So, Brad, you are with HomeSmart. You just told me, remind me, it's Brad West Homes,
Yeah,
correct? That's what we call the team?
yeah, and I've got a business, Brad West Homes, that I'm running my real estate through. Been helping people buy and sell houses now since 2019, and been loving it.
Very cool. Very cool. So, we'll talk about a bunch of stuff today. One of the main things, though, I know that you want to talk about was really for first time home buyers, or not even first time home buyers, just home buyers, how to be competitive in today's market, your experience in this business, where you focus on here. Let's just learn a little bit about Brad.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm based out of Baltimore County. That's where I live. I've grown up in Baltimore County my whole life, and I live in Parkton now. I serve entire Maryland and Pennsylvania, but I primarily stay, I would say, in the surrounding areas like Baltimore, Harford, Carroll County, up into PA is my sweet spots. I also do a lot of business out in Western Maryland and Deep Creek, helping people buy vacation homes out there and turning them into short-term rentals with Airbnb and everything. That's one of the sweet spots that I've gotten into. We have an Airbnb out there as well, and love it.
Yeah, that's funny. You and I were talking when we first were chatting about you coming on here. I went to college out in Western Maryland, and you were telling me about a property that you sold out there, a pretty unique one. So let's hear about that because I love that.
Yeah, no, I've sold a lot of unique properties. I've sold everything from churches to produce stands to Airbnbs, vacation homes. Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I enjoy it. I know all the selling process is similar. I've sold a couple homes recently out in Deep Creek, and it's just been phenomenal. Helping people achieve their goals of buying a second house and letting the renters pay for it.
Yeah.
It's just an awesome process.
So you got a Deep Creek focus because it sounds like you've got a property up there. I'm assuming you really enjoy that area right
Yeah.
there. So are you more Deep Creek people or Ocean City people?
Yeah, I love Deep Creek for the 4 seasons. You got the skiing and the boating, snowboarding. So it's an all year round place you can go to. It's a nice relaxing vacation. You can sit back and not do anything, but you can get into as much as you want to. But
Yeah.
I also love the beach at the same time. I would much rather be sitting on the beach, but as far as rental income, I know it's limited to only the summer months, so that's why we ended up going with Deep Creek first here. But definitely thinking about a beach house in the future.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Well, as you expand your real estate portfolio, you can hit the entire state, right? So it's about a 6 hour
Yeah.
drive from point A to point B. I've done that a few times over the years. So from Frostburg to Ocean City and back. But I was much younger and could handle that at that point. So cool. So let's go ahead and kind of get into today's topic a little bit here, right? So we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit just about how to be a competitive buyer in today's market. I think that's really important. But like I said, as we get into that, tell me what your opinion is on the market right now. Is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? It's a balanced market. We were in a seller's market for a long, long time,
Yeah.
right? So what's your opinion? What are you seeing on today's market?
Yeah, great question. I think where we're at right now, in the surrounding Baltimore metro area is still a very strong market. And I tell people if homes are listed correctly and are in good shape in a good location, if it's posted on a Thursday or Friday, expect it to be under contract Sunday or Monday at the latest. Now, as you start to go outside of the Baltimore area and DC area, like let's say up into PA and Hanover, like I've been doing a lot of business in Hanover, PA right now, and it is not a seller's market anymore. It is a buyer's market the farther out you get for sure. Homes are sitting on the market a lot longer, and buyers are able to get a much better deal than they had in the past. But I also neighbors house sold for 550 and they want to get 600,000,
Right.
but their house isn't updated and their bathrooms are original from 1970. Those are the ones that are sitting on the market with the unrealistic sellers.
So yeah, which we see quite a bit, right? So we're dealing with that in a family perspective right now. So where we have a house that hasn't been updated really since it was built back in the 90s,
Hmm.
and the updated houses in the neighborhood are going for 750,000. Right. And our family members are like, well, why can't I get that? I'm like, well, right. It was because someone's going to come in here and do $150,000 to $200,000 worth of work to get it to what today's standards are right now. So kind of segue into our conversation as far as the buyer goes, is that something that you kind of encourage your buyers to look for, right? Is that house that maybe it's got that, what they call it, the good bones, good structure, in there, but maybe needs a little bit of TLC, a little bit of updating here to make a competitive offer.
Absolutely. That's one of the first things I do with my buyers is I try to set expectations. So when they go into this, they have, they can know what to expect. So I tell people if it's a house that's priced correctly, in good shape, in a good location, that has high demand right now, expect it to go up to 10% over asking price. And more times than not, it's like right on the money.
Right.
But there's homes that we see that may have been sitting on the market for a week or two, and some of these buyers that need seller help and stuff, I say these are the homes that we should go after, that aren't going to go 10% over asking price, where we may be able to get that $10,000 in closing assistance and we can make a really aggressive offer on. And I think it's very important that I know the market very well so I can know which houses are actually going to work and which houses they're going to go see and just have an unrealistic expectation and get their hopes up. And then they compare, a house that's actually out of their budget to the whole time when they're looking at other houses.
Yeah, which is a challenge these days, right?
Yeah.
And I put it to we all love to watch real estate shows, right? So
Yeah.
we all fall in love with what we see on these real estate shows, and that's what we start looking for. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, I can't afford that, especially in the Maryland market where we're a pretty high price market, right?
Hmm.
So we're a pretty high price market. So you fall in love with home A on TV, and you go out and look at it, and you're like, well, wait a second, it was 400,000 when I watched my television show. Why is it 750,000 out here? So now I love that. So let's talk about a little bit of I love that concept of the strategy. You need to understand the market. You need to understand what your buyers are doing so you can game plan with them to help them put a competitive offer together. What's kind of like, what's the mindset? What does a successful buyer consultation, successful buyer team, when Brad West Homes, what do you do differently than, say, the competition that allows your buyers to come in and make those winning bids?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, all buyers have the same thing in mind in today's market, especially in the high demand areas where houses are selling quickly and you might still have 5 to 10 offers on the table. You have to be able to have the best offer, and that always doesn't mean the highest price. So, my biggest complaint in real estate is communication with other agents. And I know a lot of people say the same thing, where these listing agents, they put on a great presentation to the sellers and then they never pick up the phone again. They get the listing and then you can't get a hold of them. And when I call the seller agent, they don't answer. There's not a whole lot that I can do. But there's many agents that I've had that tell me, hey, I'm going with your offer. I can tell your communication's great. And that's how it's going to reflect during our transaction, knowing that I'm going to be able to get us to closing. Able is the seller looking for anything? Simply just, what does the seller want? Do they want just the highest price and the best terms, or do they need a rent back? Do they want a really quick close? Do they want to leave everything in the house and we get rid of it afterwards? So I really try to narrow down and see what the seller is looking for, to see if we can structure our offer a way that's going to be successful. And then also, please let me know if you have any questions about it. And then a lot of agents just leave it at that. But I always call back, hey, how's our offer looking? Following up, I ask them, how's our offer look compared to the other offers? A lot of times agents won't tell me, but sometimes they will. So every advantage I can get, I'm going to ask, if the seller's willing to disclose other offers, I always ask, like, what do we have to do to win this offer? I'm a very competitive person. I love getting a good deal for my buyers and stuff. But at the end of the day, we got to be successful in the communication, talking to these other agents to be able to get it done.
So that's good, man. Like I said, I've asked this question quite a bit. I had this conversation with quite a few people. You're the first person who's really come in and said, yeah, we have to have everything in place, but I can present myself as an
Mhm.
advantage as well, right? I can present myself. I'm the quarterback of this team. So I want to make sure that I'm communicating. I'm going to give the listing side, the other side, because sometimes it does feel like they're the competitors, right? Right. It was to give them a good feeling of where they're going to work with us. We'll do something that in sales we're taught, but I don't think a lot of us do, right?
Yeah.
Find out what the other side needs and then work to fulfill those needs right there. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Like that's really
Yeah.
unique. And that's a really, really strong strategy right there. Shows why you're hitting the numbers that you are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, I mean, I just had one yesterday where the agent, we were really close with an offer, and he told us that he ended up going with our offer because of my communication. And it just shows that, I'm here to get it done. I'm competitive. If another phone call is going to make the difference, that's what I'll do. I always like to have my lenders call up the agent too, hey, this is the preferred lender that we've been working with. Make sure to tell them that my buyer is well qualified. Um, that way I'm not just calling, but the lender's calling as well, just to give us another advantage point.
Again, your whole team, right? Your whole team's
Yep.
presenting, and you said this earlier, right? It's a representation of you, right? So you want to make sure everyone's out there. So give me an example of maybe like when you've been on the listing side, right? And you're not getting that level of communication from the other side. Like what's that like? What are some of the issues that you've had? And it's caused some issues for your sellers and in turn, the other side's buyers right there.
Yep. No, that's a very good point. I had a lot of listings recently, and I can tell from the listing side, like if I have a house that's posted for sale, we do a great job with the listing and get multiple offers. I can tell, before we even take an offer, who's going to communicate well throughout the transaction. Like if someone just submits an offer and they never called me, they never communicated, no lender called me, I know how that's how the transaction's going to be. There's not going to be any communication. And even though that I'm representing the seller and they're representing the buyer, we're a team that has to work together to get this to closing. And that's the goal. So there's a lot of things that I look for. I look through the offer, and that's another thing that makes me stand out as a listing agent is I don't just go through the offers and say, here, seller, pick your choice. I go back to these offers and say, hey, can you improve this term? Can you do an appraisal gap? Can you tighten up the inspection time frame? Is there anything else you can do to improve your offer? And I truly try to get the best terms and highest value for my seller that I possibly can. So I like to go the extra mile and see what we can do to tighten it up. And also, how willing is this buyer? How badly do they want this house? Is it just like on a whim they are putting an offer in and maybe they're going to back out because they changed their mind?
Right.
So I try to feel out the offer the best that I can to make sure that we're actually going to get to the closing table.
So I think that gives you a really unique perspective, having a balanced business of both listing and buy side, right? You can represent your buyers from a perspective of, hey, when I'm on the other side, this is what I'm looking for. And this is what we're seeing as good, strong transactions. And then on the listing side, you can do the same thing, right? Say, hey, offers that are coming through, this is going to be a strong offer because this is verified, this is verified, this is verified. This offer might be a higher price, but we don't know if the cash to close is there. They're,
Yep.
X, they need Y, they need Z, all that type of thing. So you have that perspective on both sides. And I don't want to, it sounds like I'm knocking people. I don't. I just think a lot of times in our industry, we focus, we're like, I only do X, or I only do Y, right? I only do listings. I only do buy sides. I only do purchases. I only do refinances, right? On the lending side. But having that diversified approach and be able to see it from, both sides really helps the customer, really helps you, whichever side you're on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
No, that goes back to the buying side of things. That's one thing that I love to, be able to offer to buyers is when we're walking through houses to purchase homes, I've been through the renovation process before. I've bought fixtures uppers, I've fixed them up. I have rental properties. I work with contractors, almost daily. HVAC's 15 years old. It's it's going to be needing to be replaced, and that's going to cost, roughly $10,000, or here's a hot water heater, you're only looking at maybe $1,500. But things that I like to point out, like, hey, here's a stain in the basement. You might have water issues, So I like to point things out when I'm walking through with buyers to save them time thing. And, I don't want them to waste their money on an inspection and pay, $500 to $1,000 just to find out the same things that I'm telling them. So I like to go through with an open mindset and point things out that I can, to not waste time for buyers, myself, or even the sellers.
love it. So again, another unique perspective, just pulling upon your personal experience as someone who has purchased homes, who has fixed them up. You've done the work yourself. You've hired contractors. You kind of understand the the cost and some of the needs. As somebody who's looking at new water heaters right now, unfortunately, I get it. It's no fun. It's no fun when those things happen and you're a homeowner. So really cool. So it sounds like a lot of your approach to this, really focusing on the buyers, which is what this conversation is about, It's pulling from your personal experience, it's pulling from your professional experience to put them in the best position to make competitive bids and put them in a spot to win, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
So
Um,
let me ask you this. We talked about a lot of strategies to help win. What are some of the mistakes that you see buyers, whether it's, you're on the listing side or your own clients when they ignore your advice? What are some of the mistakes that you see them make?
as far as mistakes,
Or maybe we should say mistakes to avoid, right?
yeah, 1,000. And they're going to buy a house literally at the bottom of the barrel in probably Baltimore City, in a terrible neighborhood. And they're using all their money, where I'll tell them like, hey, if depending on the person's situation, but like, hey, you might be better off just renting somewhere for a little bit longer where until you can afford something a little bit nicer. Just knowing my construction background, like, ratio, you don't have a ton of money set aside after this purchase. If something big happens, like, replacing a roof or the HVAC or, something unexpected happens, you don't have a ton of money to play with and you're already in a terrible neighborhood, So I know people want to buy houses, but sometimes if it's, in the worst possible neighborhood, maybe they should wait just a little bit longer. And, it doesn't benefit me for them to wait longer. But if you wait a year or two and buy something a little bit nicer, you're going to be glad that you did.
So blowing out your budget, right? So maxing it out, taking it out. As the lender, it always makes me nervous because same thing, pulling on my personal experience as purchasing homes and writing mortgage payments for many, many years now. And we know that unexpected costs come up, right? And when we, as lenders,
Mhm.
when we look at debt to income ratio, which you mentioned, which for anyone who doesn't know, it's basically your gross income compared to the pro's mortgage payment plus whatever bills you have on your credit report. But that doesn't include your cell phone,
Yep.
doesn't include your internet, your
Yep.
groceries, putting gas in your car. And make it your own because you want to put some new paint on the walls or you want to get a new sofa. You
Yep.
can't. You
Yeah.
can't. And sometimes it works out. And sometimes
Yes.
it works out, but it's always a conversation. I'm sure you do, but I like to have with my borrowers who are doing that, like to make sure they at least want to come up that you got to be prepared for.
Yep. Yep. No, absolutely. Same thing for the listing side. I like to set expectations like, obviously looking up the comps and coming up with the best possible price for them, but not overlisting it. Where I've had clients where they swore their house was worth 100,000 more than it actually is, and all right, well let's go ahead and get it listed for sale then at your desired price, but know that I think that it's above market value. And then they sit on market for a couple months and after a couple of price reductions, now we're chasing the price down instead of if we would have started where I suggested. It's a possibility where it would have gone under contract probably the first weekend, or even possibly getting into a bidding war to drive it up closer to the price of where they wanted it up. Sometimes it's hard to get it through to them.
And now they've made 2-3 months mortgage payments
Yep.
in addition
Exactly.
um, to dropping the price where they have just taken the advice of the professionals up front, sold, gotten their money, gotten their new house, not made 3 extra mortgage payments during that time frame. So,
Yes.
and like you said, and I know we're talking about buyers here, but when you start chasing that price, I know as a consumer myself, I start watching. I'm like, why does that price keep dropping? What's wrong with
Yep.
this house?
Yep.
Because it wasn't
Exactly.
priced right in the beginning.
Yep, exactly. And that's a very true thing in today's market. Houses are selling quickly. And if you overprice it and now you're chasing the price down, that's what buyers are thinking. What's wrong with this house? That's what they ask me the first thing. Hey, what's wrong with this house? Nothing's wrong with the house. They just decided to price it too high. And they've taken too long to drop the price. And that's why it hasn't sold. And it doesn't necessarily mean something's wrong with the house.
Right.
So
So I want to talk to you a little bit about first-time home buyers. So that's a big market still, right? It's a big market, and we kind of started touching base on some of the challenges that first-time home buyer has today. So, for example, if and I'm never selling my house, right? They're going to have to carry me out in the box at this point
yeah,
because been here, we've outgrown it, but it doesn't matter. I'm happy and I love it, and I love my mortgage payment because it
yeah,
refinanced in 2020. So,
yeah,
but if I were going to go buy a new house, I could put my house on the market, take $300,000-$400,000 in equity from my house, put it down on my next house, right, and qualify and get a payment that I want. But as a first-time home buyer, you don't always get that. So, example I give to a lot of first-time home buyers, like I want to buy a $400,000 house. I'm like, awesome. In Maryland, that's going to be about $29,000.
yep,
And they're like, what? right, $29,000. So what are some of the strategies that you have for your first-time home buyers to help them, one, be able to afford it, two, be able to have the cash to close, three, be able to be competitive with folks who have additional equity to offer?
Absolutely. So it's something that I like to do before we go and start shopping for homes. Like, hey, let's get you pre approved and make sure that we're shopping in a budget that actually works for you as the buyer. So, going to the lender and saying, hey, is there any down payment assistance programs like the Maryland Mortgage Program or, any student loan forgiveness programs or things that we can do when purchasing a house that's going to help them out. So, you know, is there's any if there's any programs, how much money do you have set aside, and it really leads us to where how much they can actually afford.
Right.
And then we also determine, okay, hey, if we can get on a house, 3% seller help or, 10 or $15,000 in seller help, how much is that going to make a difference? So, a lot of times people don't have $29,000 saved up for
Right.
a home purchase. It's tough to save money in today's market, going into a first time home buyer stuff. So, anything we can do. And again, a lot of the houses that have been sitting on the market for, a week or two sometimes, those are the houses that a lot of times we'll be able to get seller help on to pay for the closing costs so the buyer doesn't have to come out of pocket
So,
nearly as much.
yep. So strategically combining down payment assistance programs with the homes that you're offering on, so you're less competitive, right? So it's a whole approach. It's not just, hey, I love that new home down the street, the new construction home. I want to go ahead and make that offer. Like, sure, you can do that, but or I want that house in that top neighborhood that everybody wants. Right? Sure, we can do it, but may not be setting ourselves up for success.
Right. Right. Yeah. My range is 400,000, but they've never seen the monthly payment of what that looks like, in today's market.
Right? I was
You
on there
know, they
like $3,000.
right. Yep. So then I have the realistic expectation, hey, okay, if you're not comfortable with that payment, let's see, what do you think you're comfortable, your max monthly payment is, and we'll work backwards from there and, make sure that we're shopping in the right price range for you. So very important because, like I said earlier, if they think they're going to buy a $400,000 house and they go and see one and now they realize they really want to be shopping in a $300,000 price range, they're going to be comparing the $400,000 house.
Sounds like a lot of this starts from just, again, going all the way back to the beginning, that initial strategy conversation that you have with your clients, right? You're trying to get ahead of as many of these potential speed bumps as possible right up front so you can have appropriate expectations set. People are cash to close. You have an idea of what you need to offer and what you need to negotiate on their behalf. Right. And when you do that, like I said, it's like having the full team. It's like having that game plan. You have your playbook that you're going to run over and over and over again, which leads to success.
Yes, absolutely. And it's like you said, it's a teamwork, like you as the lender, we're working as a team to get the job done. So everybody plays a part and makes it happen.
Very cool. So we're wrapping up here again. We're coming up on 30 minutes. I always say I always try to keep these at 15 to 20, but I've really enjoyed this conversation. So I appreciate your time sharing as much as you have. Question this is coming from a lender perspective. I would love to get your opinion on this, especially with these first-time home buyer, or really any home buyer, the competitive market. What's your opinion, whether it's from a buyer agent or as a listing agent, on a to be determined underwrite? So someone's pre-underwritten at this point. Everything's signed off on. They're contingent upon a contract, title, and appraisal. Is that a strategy you like? Is what it is. What's kind of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I weigh out those options. Absolutely. If someone's already in the underwriting stages, it's going to help speed the process up, but also know some speed bumps that may be avoided from other people that aren't in that process. So just knowing that that buyer is farther along in the process, makes it more likely that we're going to close with them than maybe some of the other buyers that we have. So of course, if we have, another offer that's $10,000 higher with similar terms, it's not going to make enough of a difference most of the time. But it definitely, a lot of these offers are so close that it can push it over the edge and make it happen.
Very cool. So it can be a compensating factor, essentially,
Yeah.
right? The terminology
Yeah.
we use in our industry. It's a compensating factor. It can help you make your decision.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get one offer and say, hey, this is to be determined underwrite, so let's take the 20 grand haircut on this, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So
Absolutely.
so cool. Awesome. Cool. Awesome. So we're wrapping up here. Anything else to share? Anything, whether it's about the Maryland market, about being competitive as a buyer, about yourself, your team, anything else you want to share for anyone who's watching this?
No, not really. I really appreciate you having me on. If anybody wants to find me, it's Brad West on Facebook and Brad West Homes on Instagram. I work around the clock 7 days a week. It's as late as I need to at nighttime, and I'm here to get it done with everybody.
All right. We'll put that into the show notes so anyone can click on those links. Best way to reach you is on the 2 social media sites right there.
Yep. Reach out to me on the social media and we'll get you going here.
So very cool. Brad, man, really enjoyed the conversation. Really enjoyed those insights from you. Again, I appreciate you being so generous with your time here, and looking forward to let's catch up with you here sometime soon. And I want to, we'll flip this around. I want to hear a little bit more from the listing side of things. Again, you got some really good experience, or maybe even talking about like the renovation
Yeah,
piece
absolutely.
of it. So very cool. Very cool.
Yep.
So awesome, man. Thank you so much. Everyone who's watching, thank you so much. Make sure you subscribe. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.